Thanks, Jim. Justin Stone here with EliteBaseball.tv, coming to you with the tip of the week. Every new player that I get that comes in the cage with me to hit, I always ask them what their intention is and what are they trying to do. What are they trying to get out of this lesson? By far, the number one answer, as you think through it in your mind right now, you can probably guess it, power. Today I'm going to discuss three things that make up power in a swing. And I'm not talking about timing or just the solid ball-bat collision. We know those things have to happen to max flight a ball. But things that have to happen within your own body produce power. Number one, the ability to get into and maintain a lower body load and what that means. The lower body is the engine of your swing, without a doubt. Think of it as a bicycle. This is the crank and the pedals. Unfortunately, most youth players want to power that bike with the handlebars. And they do the same thing in the swing. They're trying to power the bat with their upper body, arms, and shoulders. Because they're holding the bat in their hands, they want to use those muscles closest to their hands to power the swing. The biggest engine in the swing is, of course, our legs. So we have to load them correctly and then maintain that load in order to create power from the ground. And that goes to something you've heard me talk about a number of times, getting into my instep with ground pressure, and you're going to feel the load in two places there, the inside of my quad and the outside of my hip. So essentially we're loading the big bone of the leg, we're loading the femur, we're loading all the way up the leg into the hip. But even when players do that part correctly, so often they end up overloading, taking their head and torso backwards where their knee gets over the ankle instead of keeping the knee inside the ankle. Once this happens, the body has a sensation of going up and down. Essentially, I'm going to jump. So they end up going up in their next movement during the stride. Their back knee extends instead of staying flexed, and they lose that previous energy. They lose their load. So not just getting into the ground with pressure, but maintaining it on bent knees out into their stride. Essentially, I'm landing in my base stealing stance. I'm landing in my basketball defensive stance, because in those two things, I want the body in its most explosive athletic position. So I'm riding out on bent knees, feeling like I'm almost pushing the ground away from me with tremendous pressure. And that stored energy, that flexing of the legs, is what we're going to release into the ball once we rotate. So power first comes from the ability to get into and maintain a lower body load. Two, making sure we do start the swing from the legs, from the lower body, and this we call sequencing. Something else you've heard me talk about a number of times. This is the kinetic energy transfer from the legs, that engine going through the core, up the upper body, and out the arms. So what do we mean here? The body has to work in a specific pattern. A number of events has to happen where body parts work in a certain order to produce power. If it works from my legs, turning the core, and resisting in the upper body and shoulders through what we call a scapular load, that's essentially just keeping my hands back while my lower body is trying to fire. That pulling back of my upper body and resisting rotation with the torso stretches the core tremendously, getting greater energy transfer faster to the upper body, creating it into a whip-like motion that makes my torso rotate faster. So sequencing means my legs are powering the swing first, and my upper body tries to resist that rotation until the energy springs from my lower body, creating the whip of the upper body. Sequencing is something that has to be taught to most athletes. 99 out of 100 that come into a lesson with me for the first time are not in a correct sequence. And there's different reasons for that. Some is strength, some is usually this is tempo. They're going too fast in their stride and they don't allow their body parts to work in that 1, 2, 3 order of legs, core, and then upper body. The faster it goes in the stride, typically it's like an opening and closing door, where now we have upper body and lower body going together because they just didn't have time to load or resist their upper body. So sequencing has to happen slowly in the load stride process. But you also heard me mention strengthening. And even with our youngest youth athletes, the third component of power is functional strength and flexibility. And this is something that you can work without a barbell that is necessary for all athletic movements that you can do with your son or daughter at the youngest of ages. I have my own 5-year-old doing this, not because I'm forcing her as a crazy dad to be some super athlete. She likes to move. So if she likes to move and I'm encourage her to do what she likes to do in sport or athletic movement, we're going to work on basic fundamental movements. And most of these happen on 2 legs and 2 arms working at the same time with some sort of a squat or a push-up. But really where you're going to see the functionality translate to a swing is the ability to do these things unilaterally, meaning I want to work on 1 arm, 1 leg, and do exercises as accessories that way too. Because the body will have bias. It'll work, as you heard me say in a previous post of Jim's, that it'll work the strengthening portion of always shifting to the strongest side of the body. And this happens so much more in baseball and softball than any other sports because we're used to rotating and moving in one directional pattern only. So it's something you have to address. Strengthening and flexibility. If you don't do that on your own, go in for a 1-month program with a local strength and conditioning coach that can get you started on basic fundamental body weight movements, and that is going to make you so much more competent and better, not just in baseball and softball, but every sport you play, as well as healthier, keeping you out of injury. So the 3 things that make up power, you can do these on your own. Got to get into and maintain a lower body load. Number 2, sequencing of the swing. Body parts working in a particular order. And finally, number 3, functional strength and flexibility. And until next time, this is Justin Stone on EliteBaseball.tv, where you can see all 3 of those segments in detail. Come visit us. We're free for 48 hours, and we'll get you on your way to your most powerful version of your swing. Until next time, we'll see you on the field.